Hi everyone, welcome to Mamsu Code video guide session. In this video, we are going to continue our null check validation test case where we have to write down the then section. So far, what we have done is we're going to check if the system is going to handle when the data is being passed is null. So we prepared our service call with the null data, and then we prepared our expected variable on what is that we're going to validate against for the variable add sample action that is being storing what is returned by the add sample. So in the 10th section, what we want to do is first validate if the exception, the wrapper that is getting returned by this call is same as what we are expecting. So the library where we are going to use validation is assert. Now we are not expecting the data to be returned, right? This is an exception, so it's going to be thrown. So what we're going to say is assert throws. And what is the type? What is the wrapper or the contract that we're expecting here? That is sample validation exception. So this is my expected type against what? Against the data that is being stored in this variable. Okay. So here we are just validating the higher level, what it is getting thrown. Okay. We had another expectation. So whenever there's an error happening in the system, we want the system to log it so that we can come back and investigate or refer or build insights out of it for any purpose, right? So in that case, our expectation is this dot logging broker. Okay, it's not detecting. So there is something that we need to do. Let's go into our service. Here we are, the service. Okay, so if we take a look at the service, currently this service takes in a dependency only for the storage broker. Now we wanted to have a logging broker being wired whenever we are handling the service. So we're going to say logging broker. Let's resolve this. So anyone who's going to get a hold of the sample service has to pass in the dependencies of storage broker as well as the logging broker so that this particular scope or the instance of the class has a hold of talking to logging broker. Okay, since this is going to be multi-line, I'm going to remove this. It's auto completing tab. Okay, so here we are. So it says inconsistent accessibility parameter type logging broker is less accessible than the method. Okay, so this is going to be public. Let's go take a look what the logging broker is holding. This is internal. Yep. So we are doing it all for a purpose. Every time we write the code, we need to understand what we're writing it for. Okay. Now the access modifiers are public. This one should be happy. Yeah. So I would like to break it down just for the easier. So it's like you take your eyes can just go over this line, right? And it's all there rather than going all the way like this. So that's my preference. Okay. So now we have done this one here. Let's go verify if now it's getting detected or not. So this dot logging broker, still it's not getting detected. Why? So the scope of this test is different from the service, right? So let's go into our common class where we are preparing the entity. This as an error. So it says it's expecting logging broker. Nice. Again, the scope of testing is still with the service. So we will take a hold of the mock library workflows. So logging broker mock. Okay. And this one here needs to be instantiated. this dot logging broker is this. And now I will alias it. And then I say this dot logging broker mock dot object. Okay, so now whenever I'm going to use the sample service object, I already have my logging broker instance wired up, right? And let's get to the test. So here what I'm going to say is logging broker. And now I'm going to verify certain things. So in the happy path, we leverage the method called setup, where we are instructing the mock library to do the activity when this particular input is called for this particular method. Whereas here we wanted to verify, similar to this piece. I'm going to verify. What am I going to verify? If the logging has happened or not. So broker dot log error. So in my current workflow, I want an error to be logged when this particular null exception happens. So that's why I'm validating if the broker has a call for log error or not. Okay. So then now I need to verify if this log error has been called with exactly the same exception here and the nested exception here. So for that, let's go with this, right? Okay. And I'm going to say this particular call should have happened only once. I don't want more than that. So times once. Solve this one here. Okay. What we have done is I'm going to expect logging broker to receive a call for the method log error with this particular parameter. The beauty here is I just don't want to validate only this piece, right? I want to validate this one against something. So where is this against? How can I get a hold of it? So we're going to use our mock library. So this one, let's over this and see. So what this says is this class allows the setup to match a method invocation with an arbitrary value. So whatever the parameter that is being passed in for this log error is being captured in this particular mock library. Okay. So now what I'm going to validate, whatever the parameter is coming in here is being same to this. So this one has an error. So it says allows the specification of a predicate to perform matching of the method call arguments. So here, if you see the syntax itself, it.is is going to take in, going away, yeah, it's going to take an expression, func, and the type of, and it's going to return a Boolean for the predicate match that you're performing. Okay, let's go write that particular method. Here, this particular validation is going to be common for every single test case where you're going to validate a logging broker. So I'm going to, leverage this method as a reusable method. So I'm going to write it out in this particular file, common file. So the method name is same exception as. So what am I going to validate? I'm going to validate that this particular, let's write this method here and then move it across there, okay? So same exception as, I'll complete the, method definition shortly just to talk it out. This is my method name, and then it's going to take in a parameter. This parameter is of type sample validation exception. And then let's say this is an exception. So since we're going to move or leverage or reuse this method for all type of exception that's going to happen, I'm going to generalize this. Okay, so that when I move this method into a common folder, every other test case, if at all there's a test that is not expecting this type of an exception, but a different type, everything is going to be back, using this method. That's why I'm generalizing it here. Okay. So now coming to the access modifier, if we have any confusion on what it is, I'm not able to decide who's going to access it when, then go with private or internal by default. So we restrict and then we start expanding based on the need. Now I'm clear that this is not going to be used by anyone else or by any of the instances of this class itself. So I'll go with private. Then I'm going to say what this method is going to return. So if you over this is expecting this as your return method, right? So that's what we're going to construct here. So I'm going to say expression, and then it's going to be a func, and the type here I'm expecting is exception, and I'm going to return either the match is found or not. So that's going to be my Boolean. Okay, I need to resolve this one. Yeah. And let's just get an empty one here. So this particular method, I don't want that to be accessed in any instances. So I say static. Okay. So far we have constructed our method definition. So this particular is now this error is gone. See, because it was expecting what it is going to return. Okay. So now what I'm going to validate, I'm going to return a Boolean to say, has this particular expected result that we have prepared the same as what this method has received as a parameter input. Okay, so the first thing that we want to validate is this is going to return a Boolean. So we say actual exception. This is called a lambda expression where you have certain kind of logic. It's not that a simple logic of equals, not equals, greater than, lesser than, right? It's an expression that you're going to evaluate. Since I'm going to use this as an actual exception and I'm going to validate this against an expected, it's going to be making sense if I use this variable name as expected exception. Okay, so what am I going to validate here? I'm going to validate if this particular, the box, the wrapper message is same as what I have been prepared for. So I go and say expected but message equal, I'm sorry, so left hand side is actual, so that's better in readability. So actual exception dot message equal expected message. Okay, so now what we have done is just looking at the high level box or the wrapper that we received when we call the method, saying that is this message that I'm expecting is same as what that message is being prepared when this particular method is called. Okay, what else? We want to validate whatever is the inner exception. So this is the wrapper, this is the inner. I want exactly this particular exception to be thrown when a null is passed. I don't want something else. I don't want any other message to be thrown when I'm passing in null. So in that case, what we're going to do is, this is an expression. So we say ampersand, that is, and I want this message to be same as well as and actual exception dot inner. I'm opening up the wrapper. I'm getting inside the inner exception and I say even that message should be same as what I've prepared. I don't want any other change. So in this way, I'm able to validate that this call should be returning of this type. Not just that, the messaging that has to be there in the outer layer as well as the inner layer has to be the same. So this serves my purpose of ensuring a right message is thrown when this type of invalid data is thrown. So now I'm going to move this to here. Okay. So now this file needs the references. Okay. Okay. So now here they would have gone, gray because they're not getting used. I can run the code cleanup and clear it out. Okay. What else can we verify here? What I want to verify is in case this particular call has been successfully passed on, the next level is the broker, right? Let's get back here. So this is the core broker method that's getting called when the add sample is being executed. Now, what I want to verify is, hey, I want to ensure that this call has never happened because there's an error already occurred. So I'm going to call that one saying that this dot storage broker mock verify broker dot insert sample it dot is any sample and times never. I don't want this method to be executed anytime in this workflow if the data is invalid. Just to ensure our system is doing the right thing when this type of data is being called. An interesting aspect that you're seeing here is this particular syntax, which says it dot is any sample. What it means is this method should not have received any call for any type of data, not just null, let it be anything else of this type. That's the validation that we are doing. Okay. And we're taking it to the next level saying, these are my core logic for this particular workflow. Other than that, I don't want any other auxiliary calls as well. Verify no other call. So if you type VNO, it's going to give you this, filtered view. And the other dependency that I want to verify is storage broker.vno. Right. So this particular test purely focuses on if I'm passing in null, I'm expecting this type of data. And not just that, I'm ensuring that the messaging is right and the logging has happened just once. And my code logic of insertion is never called for any type of data, as well as there are no other dependency calls made so that the software just purely works. Okay, I'm receiving a null, I'm validating it. It's invalid. Let me throw an error, let me log it, and then let me end the execution. Let me not do anything more. All right. So that's exactly what we wanted. Okay, let's run the code cleanup. Let me run the test. Hopefully it should fail with a message that, okay, let me open it up, that no exception was thrown. Yeah. So let's read this out. I'll see if I can expand it. Okay, yeah, this is good. So what it says is we are going to assert throws, right? That's the method. We are expecting this type. So type of, we are expecting this type, but actually what happened? There was no exception thrown, right? Because we are doing it in a test-driven development. We were writing our fail test first and then ensuring that it's getting passed. This is a perfect thing. Great. So what we can do is we have run the code cleanup. We can make our commit and say this is going to be a fail test. Nice. There's one more thing you may want to verify is since we introduced the broker dependency, just for the sake of understanding that, we are doing validations, we need a broker, we introduce that. If you take care of this test, This test is expected to validate all the dependencies for the sample service. When we wrote this test, logging broker didn't exist, so there was no need for us to verify that, but now it does, right? So let's go and say this dot logging broker dot verify no other calls. You can still go log a particular workflow telling, okay, I've added this particular sample at this point in time. For now, I've not coded that. I'm not expecting the system to do that. That is why I'm just, verifying that no other calls have been made for this dependency, right? So let's just ensure that they're all intact. Let me run it. Yeah, so anytime a particular workflow in a test or a requirement can change, just ensure that every other test are intact, they're all still holding good. So here I can say code drop and sample and commit. Okay, so successfully we have written our failing test. Then we ensure that other test cases are still holding good for the new dependency that we introduced. In the next video, let's make it pass. Let's see all some green, 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 right? Thank you for watching.